Welcome to the bold analysis, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for supporting our podcast. Here we reveal and review. I just realized that people are wondering why did I change the background. I'm actually working on a new studio. It's work in progress. Yeah, pole pole. Yeah, so I might still have to shoot. I'm looking at launching that studio in May, the first of May. I believe that I'll be able to have done the studio work. There is a lot that comes in it, and I also want to say thank you for backroom team. Yes, some few fellows that are also supporting me around it. You can also chip in a small way. Now, there are two critical offices that are very important for the success of every government. And these offices are the Auditor General and the Controller of Budget. So the photos you are seeing here is for Margaret Nyakango, the Auditor General, and then Nancy Gadungu, Controller of Budget, Margaret Nyakango, and the Auditor General, Nancy Gadungu. This is because Controller of Budget okays every government expenditure. No money can be withdrawn or spent from the consolidated fund without the nod from Controller of Budget. And after government agencies and ministries spend our taxpayers' money, the Auditor General swings into action just to find out whether justice was done to our taxes, by making sure that expenditure is actually the expenditure is in conformity with the goods and services delivered also. So these two offices are very important. And I remember Nyakango, even I think when appearing before the Bipartisan Talks Committee, spoke about their relationship with the Auditor General's office. I really spoke about things that are not right. And immediately, Controller of Budget, I think there was even a latest report, she declined to okay some 51 billion to be spent, that were erroneously to be spent under the Article 222, which is the supplementary budget. She was really harassed around. And you'll see about how she was moved, arrested on some flimsy charges in December last year. I think that was December 5th, if I remember, when I did that story. But again, these two offices are very lethal to any government, because whenever they release reports, people in government have always had this tendency. There is this perennial culture of stealing and wasting, of misappropriating money. I think misappropriation is just a corporate word. We said we are not going to use those corporate reporting of misappropriation, stealing money. Now, last year, during a cabinet retreat, Nancy Gadungu, the Auditor General, bravely told President Ruto about wastage and taking cognizance of the fact that sitting government always have a problem with audit queries.
If we concentrated first on the reports of the Controller of Budget, on how budget is implemented, then down the river or down the road, we would not be having all these headlines that seem to indicate that this country is not developing, or that this country is not getting out of wastage, corruption, and other misallocations of resources. I won't say much, Your Excellency, now, but the issues we need to look at is pending bills, and I did emphasize on this in Nanyuki, that when we are talking of building the bottom up in terms of businesses, then we are also sabotaging the very same businesses by not paying for the supplies they've given government or the work that they've done for the government. the issue of lack of accountability for the resources is very critical. That every one of the people you have delegated to assist you in delivering on the mandate and on the needs of the Kenyan people must be accountable for what they are given. And if they're accountable, Your Excellency, then you're able and your team is able to build trust in your government. When we issue the reports that we do as constitutional commissions and independent offices, and it's all, if I may say, doom and gloom, then you lose, as a government, trust of the people, which is very, very important, because there's nowhere else that the counties or the country or the Kenyans will go to except to this country. We are here to support you. I want to reiterate again, we are your advisors. Even as your CSs and PSs employ other advisors, they must know that we are the front line and we can guide them, we can discuss with them, we can consult with them to improve on accountability. We must follow the Constitution and we must follow the law. The Constitution speaks to 12 months in a year, which is a financial year. But Your Excellency, we have created a 13th month, and in that 13th month, there's a lot of wastage of resources. As your accounting officers whom you've appointed struggle to absorb funds in May, June, and unfortunately in July, funds that they should not be receiving in July. And that creates the loopholes, Your Excellency, for wastage, reallocation, misallocation, illegalities, and irregularities. The CS National Treasury needs to address this, and Your Excellency, this can be done as a directive or as an amendment to the Public Finance Management Act, including instituting accrual accounting so that your PSs don't struggle as other PSs have struggled before to absorb funds at the last quarter of the financial year.
Now, what is emerging, ladies and gentlemen, is now different. You will realize that even today, Nation read a story about the poor state of our embassies. There have been multiple audit queries emerging one week after the other. And by the way, for me, if you frequently reread newspapers, you cannot miss an audit query story in a daily newspaper. Even today, the Nation had a story. Yes, the Nation had a story about the state of our embassies. Just 2 weeks ago, there was a story about how Statehouse budget for buying cars and renovating state lodging and state houses. And the Auditor General, every week or rather daily, normally has a story in our dailies about our expenditure. And I think the government realizes that those stories are making government unpopular. So, Kenya Kwanza has come up with a raft of changes that are very suspect. And I want to say that if William Ruto believes that he needs to fight corruption, then he must relook at this, because these amendments are actually not showing clearly that he has no intention to fight corruption. I told you, the Auditor General is the current head and accounting officer of the National Audit Office that audits government. Now, Kenya Kwanza, through a bill sponsored by Majority Leader Kimani Ichun'gwa, has proposed a raft of some changes. And I want us to look at these changes. Number one is creating an office known as Audit Advisory Board. And this Audit Advisory Board is supposed to take up the powers of the Auditor General. It will be responsible for providing advisory. Actually, this board will be in charge of Auditor General. You know, unlike now, Auditor General is an independent office. It will be in charge of advisory and budget plans and estimates, human resource management, and any other matter as referred by the Auditor General. So the Auditor General will be reporting to this board first. And as if you might ask, Kevin, what is the problem with the board? The problem with the board, and my take, is the membership. And I want you to look at that membership. The members of that board is a hybrid of politicians and state officers. And that is where the problem starts. Number one, the Auditor General is going to be the chairperson of that advisory board. There is absolutely no problem. There is even creation of Deputy Auditor General, who is going to be the secretary of that board. Absolutely no problem. Then there is one person, a representative from ISPAC, which is a Certified Public Accounts of Kenya. That's an expert. Absolutely no problem. Now this is where the problem starts. Okay, there is also Attorney General. I don't know why he's there, because this, I don't know where he's going to come through. But Attorney General also is an expert in law and comes with an input in terms of the legal question. So him, I think his place is there. Now, there are these other members. One is the chairperson of Appropriation Committee. The chairperson of Budget and Appropriation Committee, as we speak, is none other than Ndindi Nyoro. That is a politician. That is a politician, Ndindi Nyoro. The other one is one MP and one senator, each from the two houses. Remember, I think even drafters of this bill are forgetting that that chairperson of Budget Appropriation Committee is also an MP. So it's like Parliament is going to have two people. So, one senator, one MP. Most probably, government will find their way by getting leaning team. Then, when you look at that, when you bring up the politicians in it, some of which are even defending and are defenders of the Kenya Kwanza administration, do you want to tell me that any report will come about Statehouse and Ndindi Nyoro sitting in a board will allow that report to go to the media? Or before even that report is out, there will be calls from Statehouse. It will be taken to Statehouse. This is what the Auditor General has produced and supposed to be taken to Parliament before you do what we do. So don't you think that when you put politicians, in fact, when you put politicians in such boards, that's a red flag. That office that is supposed to be independent is going to lack its independence just on that ground. But look at that proposal. Number one was that advisory board. Number two, and let me just refer to the article because I took it here. The bill, they're also proposing the qualification of an individual to be appointed as an Auditor General has been reduced just to a practicing member of a good standing professional body of accountants recognized by Accountants Act. And the writers are saying, and I want you to look at that, this will open the door for appointment of foreigners to head a crucial office that audits the expenditures of state security intelligence, such like KDF, National Intelligence Services, NIS, and the Kenya Police. I think probably Kenya Police, among other critical security installations. It's not really related to the other one, but they're reducing qualification of someone to be an Auditor General so that they can allow for appointment of a foreigner to audit the NIS and KDF accounts. Okay, someone might want to ask why or how, and this one I want to throw it to you so that you also weigh. The rationale here is, the thinking here is, the KDF, the security apparatus are normally not audited. They only have an audited account. By the way, Auditor General doesn't audit KDF, doesn't audit Kenya Police, doesn't audit NIS, and they rarely also audit but nowadays they audit Statehouse. So, fine, you might want to keep state secrets and that's why you want to bring a foreigner. But don't you think even people that are spending that money in NIS, in KDF, those are Kenyans? Why do you think we need to put a foreigner to audit those? If we get Kenyans and we prescribe the code of conduct of the office holders in those offices, can't we still keep the secrecy of spending habits in our security apparatus? Why would we want to bring a foreigner to audit our security accounts? Mine ends as a question because I don't have the answer. If someone have an answer here, or a global practice from a foreign country or some country, whether this is the common practice, I will be so glad to learn on that end. Because for me, I'm thinking we just need to get a Kenyan, we prescribe the code of conduct to ensure that secrecy, because there's so many other people that have state secrets and they're not laid there. Do you remember when President Ruto said that you were looking for dossiers, corruption of government, grafts cases, fishing for grafts, and you're not going to get none? That is actually his fear. So, as if that is not enough, let me show you what what then is also being proposed. Yes. In some other change, the bill is proposing seeks to re-audit the audit process, rework on the audit process, and is saying, according to that bill, it wants that at the beginning of audit of a state organ or public entity, an entity meeting shall be held to deliberate on the scope of the audit between Auditor General and the accounting officer. I was just doing research. That is the law. That is the standard rule in auditing, and there is absolutely no problem with that. Then it says that the Auditor General shall then prepare and issue a report to Parliament and the relevant county assembly. Then within 14 days, I want you to look at this, from the receipt of any audit report, the accounting officer of that ministry or that state agency shall submit a response to Auditor General, including remedial actions undertaken to address the audit findings, in what would likely usurp the powers of audit committees of the legislature at the national or county levels. You know what it says? That now, that deliberation, that debate by committee members about this report is not going to happen. That is a departure from what used to happen, because according to PFM Act, a PFM is Public Finance Management Act, 2012, it provided that all accounting officers shall be required to prepare and submit financial statements to Auditor General 3 months of the end of every financial year. Of course, that's what they normally do. Within these 3 months, the Auditor General, after receiving those statements, audit and report to Parliament or County Assembly on the expenditure. Then, after the report to Parliament, the Parliament shall debate and consider report and take appropriate action. The other 3 months are for the executive or the national or county level to implement recommendations of Parliament or County Assembly. In fact, Parliament, after receiving and debating, can also investigate in its capacity. Just try to, it's not mostly investigate, but also try to dig deep. And through that, they can even sanction for investigation by EACC, telling EACC that you need to investigate State Agency X or Mr. Y or this office over this. They can sanction ENCC. Number 2, they can also come up with bills and legislative agenda, legislative changes on administrative changes on some cases, on some entities. They can also sanction they can also removal of leaders or state agencies, people that are in charge of state agencies who fail to give these queries. So there have been a bit of that. But you see, the problem here is not that MPs have not been able to pinpoint where the problem is. The challenge has been on implementing. And with parliamentarians, what has always been happened is it's a corruption space where people are corrupted and all that goes. What I don't see is if Auditor General receives that report, accounting officer mwambia nilinunua hii and still sees inconsistencies, what next? That is why I think William Ruto needs to is more deliberate on this, but it's a poison chalice. It's not the right path. And I'm looking, for me, this is what is motivating these changes. Number one, I think Ruto wants to seal leakages to media about audit queries because they malign the government. The more when audit queries come out and the public consumes and the MPs talk about it, it's splashed in newspaper headlines, like the story about Statehouse expenditure and all that. The public is growing hostility on government, and they want to silence the question of our money is being misused. Number two, scrapping off parliamentary committee debates who summons ministry and audit queries, because when they summon some of these leaders and ministries, they find out that they expose more. They spill the beans, and I think government has realized that some state officers appearing before parliament are not so economical with the truth. This is not a good direction, because it also waters down the independence of some of these bodies by injecting politicians and wiping out of those two independent officers. And what should actually worry Kenya Kwanza is that William Ruto should then understand this points out to something. He's not so much interested about fighting corruption. Ladies and gentlemen, I've given an in-depth outlook about this raft of these changes. I want to read your feedback here. What do you think? I've tried to be very exhaustive, and especially on that part of military and NAS, and where would you think that we need to get a foreigner in that space to audit the accounts? Why not a Kenyan? And what is the guarantee that a foreigner would be disciplined? Or are we going to get the donor to come and audit us? You know, we need to find more about this. I'm so curious to know about that, and if someone is informed, you can share with us. Information is power. Thank you.